Hello everyone, it's me Kaiser again with a new video. Finally making a video and not taking 2 weeks to make the next video. But yeah, I'm here with my adorable dog, and I just wanted to talk about something I was thinking the other day while I was actually working at one of my schools. Um, so I think in my last video, we talked a little bit about how much Japanese do you really need to know to live in Japan. So this video is kind of focusing on not so much the opposite, but English ability in Japan. More so um, thinking about your English ability and how I think as a native speaker, there's a lot of things that we don't really think about, which I just kind of found interesting. For me, we were doing a lesson on, like different tenses. So you have like, you drank something, you drunk. Um, you had, like, has, like different things like that. And it's interesting because as a native speaker of English, English is my first language. Um, you don't really think about it. Like in conversation, you don't have to sit and think, what's the past tense of this word? You just do it. So it's kind of funny because when someone actually asks you to explain it, um, for me personally, I find it really strange because it's kind of, just something so when it comes to explaining something like that, obviously there's all right way to explain it. There's books and different lessons, things like that to explain it. But just having someone come up to you and say, what's the difference between you must and you have to? And again, as a native speaker, it's just something which is, so interesting to me that, again, when learning a different language, everything is new. Um, so I think when I first came to Japan, when you learn Japanese, the structure of sentences is different and they don't have the same format. The words like have, has, they don't just say those words specifically. It's a little confusing, but there's different ways to make a sentence. So I always thought it was really difficult in Japanese, but not saying it isn't now, but now that I kind of have more background with the Japanese and English, it's actually interesting because I can see how the English is a lot harder for Japanese students, or just in general, I think. Basically, you have not only different tenses, but different words that you have to use. And there's a lot more than I kind of, I guess, thought at first in English. Again, it's not something you really think about. When I speak in Japanese, I usually have to kind of take the time to think about, the sentence I want to say, or, what I want to say. Not with everything, basic conversation, is fine. But when it comes to, maybe something, fairly new I learned, maybe something difficult, I kind of have to think about it. In English, making this video now, you don't really have to think. I can just, say what I want to say. Um, but I think overall, it's something as a native speaker, I think a lot of native speakers don't really think about how difficult English actually is. Not only to learn, maybe for foreign speakers, but just I guess how interesting or how amazing, for lack of a better word, it might actually be the best word to use. I think I take for granted the fact that I can speak fluent English. When you grow up in, America, everybody, for the most part, let's say speaks English, or, where I grew up, everybody spoke English. It doesn't seem that interesting. But when you really look at it, when you live in a foreign country, you kind of realize how amazing it is that you can speak English. It's really cool that you are able to kind of just, I don't know, speak so many different words. I know I'm kind of rambling now, but, just kind of the whole idea was interesting. Again, I've never really looked at it like that, English, or looking back as to how I learned English. I remember, school, like elementary school, a little, middle school, things like that. But I don't really remember learning English. It's just something I feel like I've always known, which, obviously isn't the case. I studied English, when I was little, et cetera, et cetera. And, now I can speak fluent English. But again, it's something I think we, as native speakers, take for granted. Or, we don't value our English ability as high, um, when we're in America. Whereas if you're in a foreign country and you're using English, especially if you're teaching it, the reactions that you get from students or teachers, with them just being impressed with your English or just, amazed with your ability, and, you think to yourself like, oh, it's not that difficult. In my head, I didn't do anything amazing. But, for them, not necessarily knowing the same level of English you do, it's kind of, again, for me with my Japanese friends, when I talk to them, I'm always really impressed. And they always laugh because, they're Japanese. So, of course, they know fluent Japanese. But, it's always amazing to hear it, even simple stuff. So I kind of understand, I guess, more now, the opposite side of the spectrum where Japanese people are so impressed with your English ability or, overall just being able to use English, to a certain capacity. Yeah, but it was just something I kind of thought about while teaching English. Again, I thought it was something that would be a fun topic to talk about, but it'd be interesting to see kind of what everyone else kind of, thinks, like your own opinion on, if you're a native speaker, if you're not a native speaker, um, what do you think in terms of English? If you know English, do you feel like you take for granted the fact that you know English and maybe don't value it, as high as something you can do? Or again, if you're not a native speaker of English, how do you view English? Or view people that can speak English fluently, and so forth. But yeah, that's basically it. A short video for once. Usually my videos are too long, I think. Um, but again, I'm just starting making videos and things like that, so I think in time they'll get better. But yeah, again, just something I wanted to go over. I think for my next video, might be a little bit more interesting. I think I'll actually go more into what I've been doing in Japan, pictures and whatnot. Finally get around to making a video like that instead of just rambling. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something new. And yeah, I'd love to hear, your own opinions, or again, it'd be interesting for you to kind of just think if you're watching, make your own opinion or formulate your own idea of what you think about the whole subject altogether. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.